can talk about today's about anxiety and how to deal with anxiety, because we are all sort of facing different life challenges, irrespective of whatever stage in life we are. If we are young, then the anxieties of doing well in exams. Uh, if we are um, if we get older, if we become like get into college, then the anxiety is about fitting group. Uh, when we get out of college, then the anxiety is about pursuing making the right career choice, pursuing the right um education. When we uh, get through that higher education, then the anxiety is about getting the right job, perhaps. Um, Maybe after getting the job, then the anxiety is about finding the right life partner. Maybe the anxiety is about starting your own business. Maybe the anxiety is about uh, settling the future of your children. Maybe the anxiety is about um, physical health. Sometimes unexpected illnesses happen. Maybe the anxiety is about uh, a midlife crisis, not knowing, where life is headed. Maybe the anxiety is about bringing about a career change, a transition. Um, Maybe the anxiety is about growing old. Maybe the anxiety is about dying eventually. So there's like constant anxiety in our life about various things. Also, one of the anxieties about being successful at what you do, at being wanting to be liked by others, uh, making enough money. Those are other factors about. So, uh, so-called normal human life is filled with anxiety at some point of time or the other, and it's almost like a mm, undercurrent. Whatever we may be doing on the surface, but often undercurrent, there is always some kind of anxiety. Now, the intensity of anxiety may um, enhance because certain situations may trigger it. Uh, but always there is an undercurrent of anxiety. And why I say there's an undercurrent of anxiety is because the cause of the anxiety is the mind, because our mind is constantly active. It is always, more often than not, projecting something about the future. More often than not, it is wondering whether I am good enough. It's more often than not, it is wondering what is going to happen next. More often than not, it. So the mind is, the nature of the mind is such that the mind is constantly thinking often about the future, and it's also uncertain about the future. because the mind can only project something, imagine something about the future, but it can't have any certainty about the future because the future is not here right now. Similarly, the mind is also, the nature of the mind is it's quite often also thinking about the past. What happened in the past. Oh, did I make the right choice? Did I do the right thing? Oh, uh, was that the right behavior? Oh, I shouldn't have probably done that. And also the other nature of the mind is it also quite often doesn't know. It's like, um, oh, should I do this or should I not do this? Oh, um, uh, I want this, but at the same time, I want this. It's always sort of vacillating. So, since we all have a mind, and most of our mind is filled with all kinds of unconscious thoughts, and those thoughts are constantly moving from the past and the future, and those thoughts are constantly moving in, vacillating. So, anxiety is bound to be there. Whether it is intense anxiety or whether it is less anxiety, anxiety is bound to be there. And the anxiety is primarily because, if I were to put it in like one sentence, it's because the mind is running all over the place with its thoughts. That is the cause of our anxiety. And not only is the mind running all over the place with its thoughts, the mind is creating a individual also, who wants something and who doesn't want something. So there is this individual who is desiring something, and this individual who is fearful whether those desires will not come true, or this individual who is not desiring something and who is fearful that what it does not want may come true. So it's looking at it in both ways. So basically the mind is creating this uh, image, this individual who is who wants to feel good. And when I say feel good, it's not about feeling sensory good, it's about feeling psychologically good. That, okay, I'm in control. Oh, things are going as per plan. Oh, um, uh, I am I am successful. Oh, I am liked. Oh, and but then it's often not, it is not sustainable. It's there for a short while, you may experience that, and then something else happens, and then suddenly the anxiety comes that, oh, whether things will go as per plan, whether it will not go as per plan, because life is constantly in this sort of like waves, ups and downs, ups and downs. So basically that's like a human condition to be anxious. And the anxiety can take various levels. Like the anxiety sometimes can uh, become like panic attacks, and then you have to seek medical health professionals. It also varies. So one would be anxiety which is in the realm where you can manage fine. You are feeling anxious, you talk to a friend, and you maybe go for a walk, do some exercise, and then you stop feeling so anxious. Sometimes the anxiety prolongs for a certain period of time, or you're going through a whole transition, or something is happening, and then perhaps it's good to maybe talk to a counselor or a therapist for that, so that that transition, that phase, you can sort of deal with at that time. And sometimes it becomes very severe that you can't even be functional. You have difficulty even in, sometimes I've known people who have such difficult panic attacks that they have difficulty in breathing. I mean, and just to talk to such individuals is really stressful for me as a person who's listening to them, because someone is talking to me and that person is saying, I can't breathe, I'm choking, and I often don't know, what to do at such times. So, but primarily the cause of anxiety, I feel, is because of our identification with the mind and identification with thoughts. That's really the cause of anxiety. That we are so identified with the notion of ourself. If I were to give an example, that maybe a notion of ourself is that we should be healthy, and then we are not healthy. Now that's creating anxiety. Maybe a notion of ourself is that we should be liked by others, and then something makes us feel we are not liked, or we are not. It may be our own projection, but that creates anxiety. Or something, our identity wants to be considered as successful in what we do, uh, whatever that success parameter for success is, and then we don't feel successful in what we are doing, and then we feel anxious. So quite often, the root cause of anxiety is identification with the thoughts and the mind. And no matter what what I say, these thoughts are not going to go away like after just listening to this, or realizing, oh, I've understood the root cause of anxiety is this unconscious, this mind, this thought which is constantly projecting something, and it is creating an identity, this ego identity, this personality, which is wanting something and which is fearful of that not happening. This is the root cause. But just by knowing it, it's not going to go away. So then the question comes that, fine, then what can I do to manage anxiety? Uh, and that's really perhaps, and the focus of, while I'm talking about how to manage anxiety, but also uh, it's also linked. Eventually the goal is to move away from what we think we are to what truly is, which is awareness. So I think the first thing to alleviate anxieties is that one should not get into this business of right and wrong. Mm, This right and wrong creates more anxiety. Right and wrong would be like, oh, this happened in the past. Oh, this wasn't right. I wish this should have happened. Oh, I did this in the past. Oh, I shouldn't have done this. Oh, I I made that decision. Oh, you know, I think one thing that can really help to sort of come to terms, or find some degree of mental balance, is to uh, see that there is no right and there is no wrong. Whatever happens is, in a way, you could say, right, which means whatever happened is exactly how it was meant to happen. And whatever is happening right now is exactly how it is meant to be happening. So one doesn't sort of get into analysis or reasoning, or trying to wonder why something is happening, or because that creates unnecessary more and more anxiety. It's like whatever happened in the past, this is exactly how it was meant to happen. I don't know how you can have that, because that's what happened. So I accept completely. This is exactly how it was meant to happen. Now, whether you want to call it destiny, you want to call it whatever, but it's simply a form of just acceptance that whatever has happened. There is no point fighting over spilt milk, so to speak. And whatever is happening right now is, this is what's happening right now. So what could be happening right now? You could be, some thoughts could be happening right now, some sensations could be happening right now, some life situation could be happening right now. Whatever it is, just be aware of also what's happening right now. So the point I'm trying to say is that don't fight with the past, and don't try to rectify or try to. Sometimes I think when we try to make amends, now it creates more of a mess. We like. Uh, it's just sometimes I think there's a quote in English which says less is more, which means the lesser you try to do something, the better it is. So I think acceptance of whatever has happened, and also acceptance of what is happening. Now, what do I mean by acceptance? What I mean by acceptance is not like intellectual acceptance, which is saying, oh, I accept whatever is happening, because that's just the mind saying, oh, I accept what is happening. But whatever is happening at the physiological level. There may be feeling of sensation. Anxiety is essentially accompanied with some sensation. It may be, um, you may, different sensations are associated. You may be feeling something in the pit of your stomach. You may be feeling something in your chest. You may be feeling something in your throat. Generally, it's like this area which is often affected whenever there is anxiety. And and often then the mind tries to find a solution to the anxiety. The mind creates the anxiety. This is the thing. Mind creates the anxiety, and then the mind only starts trying to look for a solution for that anxiety. Now, whatever that solution is, okay, I need to do something. I need to, you know, uh, or it wants to project a certain thing in the future, or it wants to do something out of the anxiety, trying to get rid of the anxiety. um, and I think that's really often the problem, that we are trying to get rid of the anxiety. uh, I think it's better if we can just accept whatever that anxiety is taking a certain form. The anxiety is taking the form of certain thoughts. The anxiety is taking the form of certain sensations and feelings. The anxiety is taking the form of, um, whatever is happening. Anxiety is essentially about something that is happening in your inner world of thoughts, feelings, sensations. So accept that. And I think the sometimes the best thing to manage anxiety is to really do nothing. I keep often saying that, which means the mind is racing. It is what anxiety means. The mind is racing. It's like it is not in control. It is racing. It is projecting something. It's thinking something, and the more it's thinking, the more it is creating more anxiety. Then the more thoughts, the more anxiety, and more sensations, more thought. It's like a loop. It's constantly. So while yes, sometimes it's definitely helpful that if you can talk what's happening to somebody and get things off your chest, but sometimes it also is counterproductive. The more you talk, the more you get caught up into your story and get identified with your story. So one must be careful about how much of that talking happens, because sometimes people are get so caught in their story because they keep repeating their story one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, same story, same story. So sometimes the best way to manage anxiety is to really do nothing. And the word that comes to me is to retreat. When I say retreat means what? Which means take some time out. Mhm. It could be taking some time out during the day. It could be taking some time out from your life. Maybe the time out could be you taking a week off, a weekend off. I don't know, whatever that is. But anxiety, depending on your circumstances, depending on your life situation, take some time out. And I'm sure if we all can at least take some time out, it could be something as simple like, fine, maybe today I'm not really going to do anything much. I'm just going to just be with myself. Okay, today I'm just going to, um, you know, treat myself to a easy day. Like I'm going to have simple sattvic food, or it could be have something which I feel good. Maybe somebody may feel khichdi may be good for them, or I may just have a small nap in the afternoon, then that will help me to feel good. Or I may just sort of sit and watch the trees for some time. Okay, or I may just focus on, like, sometimes it's also good, like simple. You can put your hand on your chest, you can put another hand on your abdomen and just watch the breath. You could be sitting and doing this, or you could be lying down and doing this. It's another way to connect to your body and come back into presence, because what you're trying to really do is to dis identify, disassociate yourself from this racing mind which is creating the anxiety, and come back into presence. So sometimes just putting your hand on your chest, on your abdomen, and just doing some deep breathing and nothing. And just sometimes guided meditation is very helpful, because sometimes, to listen to somebody else's voice is also very good. And there's so many guided meditations on YouTube. If not anyone else, you can go to my YouTube channel and listen to my guided meditations, because sometimes it's soothing to hear somebody else's voice guiding you through the process of settling down. So whatever you need to do, and there are various ways. Maybe somebody may just want to do some simple artwork. It need not be great, but just simple artwork. uh, you need to sort of take some time out and come back into presence, come back into awareness. And the key thing that I really want to mention or communicate is that the answer to anxiety doesn't lie in words, or the answer to anxiety doesn't lie in actions. The answer to anxiety lies in silence. Now, what do I mean by that? The cause of the anxiety is lack of silence. Cause of anxiety is thoughts. The cause of anxiety is identification with the character the thought is creating. The cause of anxiety is that this character, something is going to happen to this character in the future. That's the cause of the anxiety. So if you really want to free yourself from anxiety, then you have to stop this and come into silence, which which doesn't mean that you don't do what you need to do. It's like, fine, but taking some time out is always a little good. And what I mean by time out is come back into present. Sometimes you just, maybe one day you could just choose to just be with yourself, and maybe you can tell people around you that, okay, today is my day, I'm practicing some silence and I just want to be with myself. Just breathe. I think breathe consciously. I think that's a great way to deal with anxiety. Just breathe consciously. Just look at the sky. Uh, Another great way to deal with anxiety is also water. Water is helpful. Like if you are in a place like Bombay, then and just look at the sea. Sometimes that's really helpful. Maybe walk barefoot on the sand. That's helpful. Maybe if you find some place which is peaceful and you like to just pray, that could be. So the key thing is, do whatever you need to do to come back into a state of silencing the mind and coming back into your awareness, and avoid things which are going to trigger more and more of that anxiety. And don't try to get rid of the anxiety. Don't try to do something, because the more you're trying to do something, the more you are actually in a way creating more anxiety. Because it's the mind which is constantly in this mode of doing. So do whatever is coming naturally. And quite often when we are, it's like, there are some times when I usually, like, I have like a to-do list. Next day, these are the things I will do. So I have some direction to my day the next day. It's not set in stone. But there are some times when I feel, my to-do list next day is nothing. I don't know. I just feel like, and I actually write that nothing. I just feel, okay, today I want to do nothing. I don't know. It's like, it's something in you tells you. It's like your body has intelligence of its own. Uh, like it tells you when you're thirsty, it needs to drink some water. It tells you when you're hungry. It is guiding you. So if you can be more connected to your body, perhaps it will tell you, okay, now today is a day for nothing. It's like fasting in a way. It's like a mental fast. Enough of doing and enough of whatever. It's saying, okay, come back to yourself. Come back home, so to speak. And maybe you need to be in home for some time. Now, how much time you may want to be at home, I don't know. It depends. Like uh, at one point of time, I had like a heartbreak and I was really going through a very difficult time. And then I needed to be home for like not just a day or two, maybe a month. I needed to be at home, which meant like during that period of time, I didn't post any videos. I didn't write any blogs. I didn't feel like writing anything. I just wanted to be home. So one must learn to respect that I need to be home. I'm going through something. I need to be home. And whatever that means coming back home, maybe you just need to retreat into your, I think the key word is retreat into yourself. And sometimes that is we want to constantly, we are in this mode of doing. And if we feel if you're not doing something, then we are not worthwhile, we are not good enough. And then even anxiety comes, then we need to do something with the anxiety. That's what like increases the problem more and more. And sometimes you just need to retreat. And then when you retreat, when you're in with yourself, then perhaps once whatever change, transformation has to happen, then automatically then it's like, okay, let's look at everything in nature. It's constantly inhalation, exhalation, high tide, low tide, night, day. Similarly, our existence also has two elements: doing, being, being, doing, doing, being. The problem with us is that our mind is doing, and it does not know that there is something called being. So one has to alternate between this doing and being. And the doing, more important than the doing, I would say, is the being. Because whatever action comes from the being is more holistic, more wholesome. The action which comes from the mind is more coming out of anxiety and insecurity and all of that. And desire and greed and whatever, ambition. And so getting in touch with being, whatever that may be, like, I don't know, there's so many ways you can get in touch with being. Just take some time out. Just be with yourself. Maybe just be quiet for some time. Maybe just do some deep breathing. Maybe do some asanas if that helps you. Maybe go for a walk. Maybe just be close to nature. Maybe do some art. Maybe just have a simple cup of tea. Just whatever. Get in touch with that silence at some time, at least during the day. The more you get in touch with that being, the lesser that anxieties. And of course, like if at some point of time, if you're going through difficult time, then yes, you can always talk to a counselor. You can talk to somebody about what's happening, and sometimes it helps. But then, of course, at best, you will talk to a counselor once a week, once a fortnight. You can't be talking all the time. So eventually, you have to find ways and means to manage your own anxiety by yourself. So anxiety is a sign that the mind is completely overtaken, that there's complete identification with the mind, the character and the thoughts, and the imagination and the story that the thought is creating. And it's an indication that come back into presence, come back into being. But of course, I think the more one cultivates this practice of coming back, then lesser the chances of anxiety. So it should not be like, okay, only when I'm having anxiety, then I should come back and retreat into myself. I think it should be a regular thing that come back into being, whatever way and means you have of getting in touch with being. And eventually, I think if you're really serious about, mm, uh, if you have a spiritual quest, if you have a desire to know your true self, which is what the whole wisdom of Advaita is, of non-duality, then the practice of being in the state of silence, presence, awareness has to be from the time you open your eyes till the time you close your eyes. And it's not something that you have to do. It's one has to be just committed to it, because I think deep down, at least I think people who'd probably be listening and hearing this, whatever I'm talking, know what I'm saying is true, in the sense that my anxiety and the cause of all my problems is identification with thoughts and the mind and the character that the mind is creating. And this character is like a ego identity, is a personality which is created only by the mind, which exists only when the mind comes into play. So this is not real, but there is no control mechanism. It's like, so when that comes, let it be, let it come. You remain as awareness. It's like you realize, okay, now the mental storm has come. ठीक है, I need to remain as awareness. I need to take some time out. I need to retreat. Again, the mental storm will come. I need to take time out. I need to retreat. Then retreating is also meant to be like it's like a way of life. It's not something only waiting when the mental storm comes, then I will get back to my practice of awareness. So then I will, now whatever, I need to do some deep breathing. It has to be an ongoing thing. Mm. So, so yeah, I think, again, I'll probably repeat, the answer to anxiety does not lie in words and action. The answer to anxiety lies in silence, because the cause of anxiety is the thoughts and the mind and the unconscious identification with the mind and the character. And the more you retreat into your being, the more you come back. And the answer is actually, there is really no answer to anxiety, honestly speaking. There's no answer to anxiety. The answer is only that the mind is now, the attention is no longer connected with thoughts. It's back into its presence, into its being, into home, and life goes on. Life goes on. Whatever has to happen next happens next. But you, the action that you're doing is not coming from a space of fear and anxiety, because now you're in touch with your being. You're in touch with something deeper rooted into you. The more you're doing something out of your mind and the anxiety, then it just propels more and more anxiety. So whenever there's anxiety, there's a time like, okay, time out. I need to come back. Or whenever there is something which is related to the mind, again, time out. I need to come back. Okay, so that's that about anxiety and dealing with the stuff that the mind keeps throwing up every now and then. And like I said, uh, there's anxiety in all aspects of our life, from youth to old age. Uh, and the more we can disidentify with the mind and come into presence, the less the probability of anxiety. Not that perhaps one will become absolutely free of anxiety. There may still be anxiety, but the way to deal with anxiety is not to find a solution or an answer to anxiety, but to disidentify with the mind which is creating anxiety and come back into presence and awareness. Okay, so with that, let's end today's session. Let's take a deep breath in, close our eyes if we wish, join our palms in Namaste. My dear higher self, help me to see anxiety as an opportunity to come back into awareness. Help me to retreat back into my presence, into being, into awareness. Help me to access the silence within, the silence which holds all the answers, and answers without words, without concepts, without actions. I seek your grace and guidance in my journey towards wholeness and realizing my true self. Om Shanti Shanti. Okay, so with that, we end today's session. I'll see you in the next session, and goodbye. God bless. Take care.